Semi-final predictions. This is where everything gets real. This is it. We are down to the final four. Whichever playoff scenario you think is proper, whichever teams you think belong here or whatever, that's all out the window. We're down to the final four teams. And I got to tell you the truth. I can see and envision any one of the final four teams hoisting that trophy at the very end. I really can. I think these games coming up on Sunday should be close, should be very competitive. I just hope they happen. The forecast keeps changing. It's raining in the morning. It's raining in the afternoon. We're going to try our very best to get games in. All the captains know we have to be flexible. We may start early. We may start in the afternoon. Whatever it is, we're going to try our very best to get the games in. The teams that had a bye, like Shake and Bake and Brew Crew, they haven't played in a couple of weeks, so you don't want to delay it now. And the teams that just played, they're on a roll, and you don't want to stop that.
What's going on, boys? John Eliezer coming back for predictions. Round 2, I'm batting 1,000, 2 for 2. And here we go. Let's dive right in. So we got Mashiach going up against the Brew Crew. I really like this matchup, Battle of the Blues. But, you know, like Farka said, you got a couple of week layoffs, serious games, haven't been played by Brew Crew. I don't think Leo wins this matchup against Max. I'm going to call Mashiach in 3. I do think Brew Crew might get 1, but if they don't, it might even be Mashiach in 2, and Mo Haber gets his trip back to the World Series. You know, both captains are awesome. They're going to have their teams ready for this one, no doubt about it. But I just can't see Mashiach being stopped right now. They are feeling the vibe. They are in the zone. They know something someone else doesn't, and Mashiach might be coming this year. So that's my prediction on that game. Then we're going to, we got Biblical versus Shake and Bake. This is a tough matchup. Who do I want to win versus who I think is going to win is my biggest contradiction here. I want Biblical to win, right? I just, they're the kind of the Cinderella story here out of the 4 teams. You know, T.I. putting the team together, getting screwed by everyone, calling people cancerous in the locker room. You know, watched the whole thing on Farka. It was awesome. You know, Farka isn't a cancer in the locker room, but at the end of the day, T.I. just had to get his team rallied up, had to justify that Marty, you know, trade, and Marty's paying dividends. So, you know, this is where those guys need to step up. I want them to step up. But again, my body's saying no, but my heart is saying let's go, or vice versa. You know, I want Biblical to win. I really do. I want them in 3. That's my hope. Maybe even a sweep. But I think Shake and Bake might sweep here, or if anything, Shake and Bake in 3. I think Shake and Bake is too strong, and if Mocas and Savon and Z do what they're paid to do, there's no way anyone's stopping these guys, especially with Nabi on the mound and the defense that they formed. Jigga, you know, kind of being the glue for this team, goes without saying. And I think there's some magic there, even though they had a layoff. Unlike Brew Crew, who I think the layoff, you know, won't bode them well. Still great teams, great matchups. Can't wait to see what unfolds, see if I could bat 1,000 on this next prediction. And, you know, I wish luck to all of them. You know, it's a tough spot that they're in right now. But whoever gets there, it's all worth it. At the end of the day, you got to get in and you got to get out. Take the wins while they come. Let it go quick, slow, however you'll take it, right? Like Max said, you know, it kind of slows down the game in the playoffs. You got to think, you know, about the next batter, next 2 batters, next 3 batters. So this is one of those, you know, this is one of those weeks where you're going to see, I think, some low-scoring games, some pitchers really coming out and getting ahead of the hitters, and it's going to be quite the watch for the fans. So good luck to everyone, and you know, stay safe. Let's get some good games going on, and can't wait to see the box scores.
Number 1, we're going to start off with the number 1 team, the Brew Crew. An absolute fan favorite versus Moshiach, who's coming off of an absolute beautiful victory over Hipsters. I mean, just to analyze these 2 matchups, Brew Crew, obviously, number 1, offensively, defensively, has been beautiful the whole season. who had gotten swept by the hipsters, who Moshiach just kicked their abos this week in an absolute bloodbath. So it's really fun to analyze these two matchups. I mean, everyone knows the playoffs is a different season than the regular season, but you can't take it away from the Brew Crew. Moshiach, led by Maurice Haber, and Max Hadid, absolutely came well prepared versus hipsters. They knew the script, they knew what to expect, how to play, how to position. I could expect the same thing, the same type of homework and the same type of analysis versus Brew Crew. However, Leo Caston does have a World Series title. Gabe Abadi and I think Nanu is pretty much back to full strength with Jimmy Malak. I don't know. Is it enough for Max Hadid to be able to do again what he did last week? With that being said, this is going to be a deep competitive series. I'm not picking any sweep over here, as everyone would probably expect me to do. I tip my hat to Moshiach. They played really well, but I have to go just with overall talent. I think the Brew Crew offense and the defense, the mesh, I know they got swept last week of the season. As I said, they were going through that week lackadaisical. I have to go with the Brew Crew in 3. And that's just a gut feeling. Obviously, it could go either way, but gut feeling is Brew Crew in 3. Matchup number 2, we're going to go with the Teddy Ishak, It's Biblical, verse is Shake and Bake. Nabi has been a stud. I know he missed 2 weeks during the season to go to Israel, but Nabi has been a stud on the mound. Zach Ashkenazi's being Z. Shake and Bake just is a force to be reckoned with. T.I. had a really good week versus a weak Beast Mode team. I know I gave them props and after coming up that last week of the season, Beast Mode, but they were still realistically not a fan favorite. They didn't look good. They had a lot of weakness in their lineup, patching things together. So I wasn't so impressed with that biblical sweep. I think Zach Ashkenazi, I think Nabi is a recipe for a win. It's going to be too much for Teddy to handle. And Teddy, JT, and Edmund to handle, and I'm going to have to go with a Shake and Bake sweep in 2, and those are my predictions. Obviously, the playoffs are a different animal. Anything goes, everything goes, and I'm excited to cover that game. El Dongo game of the week, the Shake and Bake biblical game, and over and out, 2023. Looking forward to seeing y'all Sunday morning, bright and early. Have a great day.
Semi-final week predictions. Gonna start off over by the Firehouse. We got the number 1 seed, Brew Crew, coming up against one of the hottest teams in the league, Moshiach, the number 6 seed. Last seed to get in, but we're never really in jeopardy of not making the playoffs. Had a very, very rough last week of the regular season. It didn't mean so much to them. They couldn't have got the bye, but they didn't play their best ball going into the playoffs. However, Mo Haber had his team ready. Ruby Saka played very, very well at short. The top of the lineup, Jackie Haber and Elliot Saka, set the table all week last week. Max Hadid was locked down on the mound. Even after giving up a few runs early in the game, that's it. He kept them, at bay, and their offense really exploded in game 2. I thought that the Hipsters kind of helped them out in game 1. A couple of terrible base running mistakes. They didn't field the ball cleanly, and then Eddie Harari got, hit very hard and, couldn't find the zone, and they gave up some timely home runs. Charles Saka had a big game in game 1. Al Zolta had a big home run in game 2. Really everything kind of worked for Moshiach in that game 2. And, they found a way to hold down the fort in game 1. Going up against the Brew Crew, who all year was my favorite team. All year was basically in first place. They had a terrible last week of the season against the Hipsters, but they don't have to play the Hipsters. The Hipsters are out. Maybe they were a bad matchup. They got to play Moshiach. And I think that, this is an interesting series. You got Leo versus Max. What everyone thinks about that matchup, I think it's much closer than it really is. Leo's a great pitcher. He's been in the semifinals now. I think this is the 5th year in a row in the semifinals, with 2 World Series, looking for a 3rd World Series. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, in the last week of the regular season, no one came to play for Brew Crew. I mean, they have 5-6 All-Stars on their team, and not one of them, enhanced their stats in the last week of the regular season. Nanu had an offer. Jimmy didn't play good. Gabe didn't play good. DK didn't play good. No one really came to play. They slept, walked, and got blown out in 2 games. I think the bye week helped them take a deep breath. I think that, they're working on a lot of things. I think the sloppiness that we see around the league is, there's games every single week. You don't really have time to work on things. I think Brew Crew has taken the last 13 days off to really work on communication, work on fundamentals, work on what they're doing, and what they want to do. I think in the last week especially, you saw in both matchups, situational hitting is still a problem in this league. First and second, nobody out. Being able to move runners over, being able to get runners in scoring position, without being super aggressive and tagging on a shallow fly ball or being crazy on the base paths. There's ways to make productive outs that I think bottom of the lineup guys have to be able to do, or at least try to do. You can't just get up there and hit a ground ball to third and feel good about yourself, or hit a line drive to shortstop and feel good about yourself. You have to get the job done. You got to be able to, one of the best guys at the bottom of the lineup when I was coming up was Jack Jamal, sacrificing himself to hit a ground ball to second, a ground ball to first, just to move runners over so that when the lineup flips, runners are in scoring position. This Brew Crew team, it's going to come down to, the table setters. Is Irwin going to get on base? I know he had a down year, but this week is all that matters. Can he get on base in front of Gabe, in front of Jimmy, and then Nanu, can he bring them in? I think, Mickey Towell, Nanu, Butchie, they all had great regular seasons with 2 out hitting. That's an interesting stat, driving in runs with 2 outs. Now you got to do it. You got to prove that you can do it in the playoffs. It's never going to be easy against Max. I think that it's going to be 2 really, really close games. A lot of pressure, a lot of competitiveness. Semifinals, everyone wants to win. I see a split. I think that it definitely goes to a Game 3 Friday, and that's really what the league wants to see. A lot of fans up and down the sidelines, and it's going to be interesting to try to beat Max Yedid in a Game 3. Is going to be tough, but I got to see again. I'm not going to pick a Game 3. I'm just going to pick up a split on Sunday and see and go from there. The second matchup we got by the Playground Fireman's West. We got Shake and Bake against Biblical. Biblical coming off a nice sweep, 2 close games. Probably could have went the other way. Bottom of the 7th, first and second, nobody out. Yogi casting up, unproductive out. Sammy follows him, unproductive out, and they get out of the inning. And then they walk off on, I thought Albert Sitt was playing a little bit too deep for 0-2 to Jake Braha in right field. I think you got to challenge him. There's a man on third. You got to be aggressive and try to force him to hit the ball over your head. and you can't let a ball bloop in. And then compounding it, throwing the ball into the trees, into the fence, terrible throw. Yeah, he had him, but either you're going to get him or you're not going to throw that ball. That blew them game one. Game two, Aiki Mavora, just, something unexpected. Man on third after a double, runs to third when there's a man on third and kind of ran them out of an inning. And then the double play, with one out to make it could have made it 4-1. It could have been 5-1. There was no outs. Instead, it was 3-1, and Biblical kind of had momentum and got right back into the game. And they, they didn't make the mistakes. In game one, I didn't love Bar Nathan trying to turn double plays on every single play, no matter who was hitting, no matter who was running. It kind of was really, really sloppy. He was played rushed. It was his first playoff game. He is 18 years old. Got to give him some slack. But really, with Teddy next to him, I expect, a little bit more leadership and guidance and telling him, what we need from him, because those are big plays. And as you get deeper and deeper in the playoffs, those mistakes can come back to haunt them. They didn't. He got off the hook in game one in that series and was able to, see another day. But you can't continue to make the same mistakes and try to, turn the double play with a bad throw or rush to the bag at second or not know what you're doing. Are you turning two? Are you trying to tag the runner and allowing the run to score? Those plays are get magnified each round you go. I think A.B. Dweck played great in right field. It also, I think when you're playing the field, it allows you to not harp on each at bat. And, he was able to have a big hit in game one with a home run. Going up against Shake and Bake. Shake and Bake, I thought in the beginning of the year, Naby was really his dominant self. He was incredible. And then he went away. And Tuna came in and Tuna pitched really good. Back-to-back weeks, and they were 3-1 with Naby out. I don't think Naby has looked the same since he's came back. Maybe because they were 7-3 when he came back, and he didn't have much to work on, but he was getting hit hard, giving up 8, 9, 10 runs a game. To the Pickles, they probably could have got swept. To Biblical, they probably could have got swept. He really didn't look sharp. Maybe that whole grand slam that Edman hit, could have been caught if Carlos was there and they had their normal outfield. But Biblical's not scared of this team. They know they can play with this team. They know they can win this team. They're coming in hungry. They're coming in with momentum. That's the old case of, yes, you want the bye, it gives you to the semis, but knowing whoever you're playing in the semis is coming in off a series win with momentum, and you've just been, sitting in the lawn chairs watching the game last week, and you have to recapture that magic. I do think that Naby focuses in. He's got to come with it. He's got to bring the aggression, within the guidelines of the rules. We don't, playoffs, a lot of fans are going to be there. We don't want things getting out of hand. But, Naby brings the fire, brings the intensity. Shake and Bake is going to be loud. Edman's going to have to handle that. There's going to be a lot more fans at this game. A lot more, it's different playing a beast mode team with an empty sidelines. Yes, you did have, Jake screaming and, a couple of guys screaming on the sidelines. But, what Shake and Bake brings, every single pitch, it's relentless. And you got to stay focused and you got to stay calm and you got to stay level-headed. But there's the game comes down to me about the stars. I mean, yes, there's definitely going to be role players that play a key aspect of it. But, Zach Ashkenazi, Naby, Marty, JT, these guys got to come and shine. It's going to be a really, really fun game of softball. I think I see low-scoring games. Even though, you look at the lineups, they're a little bit top-heavy. They don't score that many runs, and they're going against two good pitchers. So I think that, I see another split here. I'm going to go boring. I'm going to see 2 game 3s on Friday the next week, which is going to be really, really exciting, really, really high tension, high pressure. But I think that, Shake and Bake hasn't looked great since Naby came back. Biblical's riding high. I don't think that Biblical's going to get swept. I think Biblical's going to be a tough out. I'm not, if I had to pick a game 3 here or a series winner, I probably would lean Shake and Bake now. But anything can change, depending on how they play. And in a game 3, it can be tight. I think that probably Shake and Bake wins game 1 or game 2 with a you know a little bit of a margin, and then the second game or the first game where they lose, probably a closer game. Biblical squeaks it out. So I see a split.
Let's start on Fireman's West. Shake and Bake versus It's Gonna Be Biblical. Had the long interview with Farka this morning, and I believe everything that I said. I think the job that T.I. has done here, I think in the beginning of the year he had a couple of people that didn't agree with his managerial style, and he only traded Farka, but Farka was not alone at the time, and I think T.I. has managed, and that's the word because he's the manager, he's the captain, he has managed to bring his group together. I think he softened his stance a little bit, sort of like a Tom Coughlin type of thing, where he wasn't as harsh later on and once the season began. And I think people started to buy in. And whether or not they love or hate T.I., they're buying into the fact that his team is 2 wins away from the World Series. So say what you want. This guy lobbied for the captain's job. He got it. He drafted. He did whatever else did. They made some mistakes and he got some steals. Jake Braha, a steal of the draft. Other picks, maybe not as good, but the key to his draft was Edmund Beda. That's who he put his chips behind to put on the pitcher's mound. He could have played it safe. He could have said, I'm drafting Yedid in the first round, or I'm taking Nate B in the second round, or I'm going with an Eddie Harari who he was tight with and people thought he was going to go with him. Or Leo Casson. He didn't go in that direction. He went with a guy that never pitched in this league before, and so far so good. People don't know him yet. People don't know how to scout him yet, and that seems to be working out for them. They were not able to sweep all year until now. What does that say? It means that during the year, even though they tried to sweep, they didn't have the pressure that they needed to sweep just yet. But in the playoffs, once you have a chance to take a game, they stole game 1 and they took game 2. And yeah, Beast Mode is saying they could have won both games. I don't think Beast Mode played good enough to win both games. I mean, Beast Mode cannot get runners over in that game. They made a lot of mistakes. Right field was sort of a mess. The ball is fair or foul, you gotta get it in. Mavora running from second to third. There are just too many mistakes for a playoff game for that to not bite you in the butt, and it did. They're gone. So credit, It's going to be Biblical. They are in the semifinals. They are 2 wins away. They're on Fireman's West, and this is as big as it gets. On the other hand, Shake and Bake. You have Nate B. You saw him in the background this morning when me and Farka were talking, and you have him doing his bullpen sessions, but he has not faced real hitting in a while. It's been 2 weeks since he's faced real hitting. He had a couple of games before that. He was good, not great. He had 2 weeks off before that, so it's been a very choppy season for him. Nate B looked best week 1. That's not when you want to look your best. You want to look your best week 7. But I'm not going to put too much stock into it, because you know who also looked their best week 7? The Hipsters, and they're gone. So I sort of think Shake and Bake has to get Nate B on his game, but Nate B does not need to do it alone. He has the best person in the league on his team at shortstop. He has that. He has Mo Cass at third base, who's won multiple championships. Mo Money, White Walkers, and yes, Mo Cass was the short center fielder on the White Walkers. I was confused. I couldn't remember. I didn't think I was going to be talking about White Walkers. I said Jordy was on that team. I was wrong. It was Henry that was on that team, and Henry played third. Mo Cass played short center. He has Jacob at catch. Jacob has won a championship a couple of years ago. He has Carlos, who won 10 years ago with the Expos. They have a very good core of leaders on this team. Nate B simply has to do what he was drafted to do. Pitch like he can pitch. Don't overwork. You don't have to strike 10 people out. You don't, just make sure you handle the bottom of the order and navigate the top. That's all he's got to do. Shake and Bake has enough offense to score. Biblical's bottom of the order, I'm still not convinced on. I question Cheetos, you prove me wrong. Cheetos is awesome. I question Jake, you prove me wrong. Jake is batting cleanup. He's an all-star. He's a Gold Glove nominee. You can't ask for better. But I also question people at the bottom of the lineup, and it's not working out for them. They're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That bottom half has not been coming through so far. Although Edmund Beta is showing me a lot with his bat. Need to see a little bit more from the bottom of the lineup, and they're not facing Simcha Adler this week. They're facing Nabi, and Nabi's got a real defense behind him. I think Biblical had a phenomenal season. I think they made 1 or 2 mistakes during the draft, and I think it comes to an end on Sunday. And I'm saying Sunday because I believe Shake and Bake will sweep. I think Shake and Bake is locked in, determined. They had a must-win game in week 7. They got it done against Biblical, 11-10, even though they were shorthanded. Being shorthanded killed them. They didn't have Carlos. They had to put Jacob Cohen in left field, and that resulted in a ball going over his head, a cutoff being missed, and they still managed to win that game. I think that's huge. It got them the bye. And before people say, oh, the bye is overrated, you don't want the bye, you get cold, ask the hipsters if they could have used the bye. Or ask Beast Mode if they won 1 or 2 more games during the season, if they could have used the bye. I think both of them would sign up to the bye right now. Yeah, Moshiach and Biblical are red hot right now. They're feeling great, but they had to risk putting their whole season on the line a few days ago. Anyway, I think Shake and Bake has the formula. Saban's got to wake up and start hitting the ball. Stop thinking, just hit. You're the best hitter we've ever seen. Just go out and do it. They need contributions from their role players. That means Jacob. That means Loudon. Loudon had a terrible postseason last year. If he doesn't step up in the postseason this year, you're going to start saying this guy's another regular season player that can't come through in the clutch. He has a lot to deal with right now. Carlos has got to come through. Ronnie Roland Towell, great year defensively. He's got to do it now. But most importantly, Zach has to keep up his red hot play that he did in week 6 and week 7. He was player of the week a couple of times this year. He's got to be player of the week again now. And Nate B has to be told, just do your job. Pitch great. Limit the walks. If you don't give them the free pass, this lineup is not good enough to score a lot of runs on AB. That's my opinion. It doesn't take away from what Biblical did this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of close games, instead of going Shake and Bake's way, went Biblical's way. I just think Shake and Bake has the edge on Biblical on the pitcher's mound, and that edge is significant. It's a big difference. Nabi is cream of the crop. Edmund is phenomenal. He has impressed all of us, but he's not Nabi yet. Maybe he will be soon. Maybe he'll be better than him one day, but right now he's just not there just yet. And I think the offense on Shake and Bake is a little bit better than Biblical's. Defensively, both teams have holes. They both have holes. We saw T.I. overthrow first base a couple of times, although I'm okay with him at short. Jake is playing a good third. Bar Nathan had a rough week at short center last week in the playoffs. That was a rough week. Second base, Cheetos is fair. I mean, he made a phenomenal diving stop, but he also missed a couple of easier ones. Outfield, JT was playing like he played 10 years ago. Gap to gap, covering it with that patented slide catch that he does. But I just think overall, defensively, both teams have holes. Shake and Bake has holes also. Mocas struggling all year to throw the ball across the diamond. Saban struggling with the scoops. I don't love either team defensively. Speed goes to Biblical for sure. Marty is going to get his hits. Zach is going to get his hits. Who has the supporting cast that's going to step up more? Is it going to be JT, Jake, Cheetos, and the rest of that team? Or is it going to be Saban, Mocas, Aharon, and the rest of that team? I think the 2, 3, 4 of each team is pretty similar. I think the rest of the Shake and Bake team is better than the rest of the Biblical team. Therefore, I'm going Shake and Bake, and I like them to sweep because they're a team that when they get an opportunity, they understand that this time of year, they need to take the opportunity. If they steal game one, they got to go and grab and snatch game two, and I think they're going to be able to do it. We got to be flexible this weekend. We got to see if we're playing in the morning, in the afternoon. We won't know till Saturday night or Sunday morning, but either way, I like Shake and Bake to go into the World Series with a sweep in the set. On to Fireman's East, where we have Moshiach versus the Brew Crew. Now, Dano had choice of field. He chose Fireman's East. He wanted Moshiach off of West, where they've been super successful lately. I think Moshiach is 5-1 on West this year. They're also 2-0 in the playoffs on West. He moved them to East. That's a favor for Shake and Bake also, because Shake and Bake wants West, and they want Biblical off of East, where Biblical just swept. So a little gamesmanship there. Brew Crew was this year wire to wire the best team in the league. I know they split week one, but after that they started sweeping, and they haven't looked back really. They've been unbelievable defensively. Gabe Abadi at short is one of the few bona fide shortstops that we had in the league this year. We were depleted at short with the guys that left the league this year. And Gabe Abadi not only filled the spot reliably, but he elevated his game from the last few years. His fielding percentage has to be better this year than it was in any year past. I like Gabe Abadi at short. Leo on the mound is consistent. He could throw hard. He could throw strikes. And Erwin Cohen in center field has been phenomenal. Jimmy Malach at short center has been spectacular. Up the middle with Dano at catcher, you have Dano, Leo, Jimmy, Win, and then at shortstop you have Gabe. That team is phenomenal. In the corners you have Abe Haber, as clutch as they get, and DK, who's having his best year ever. A guy batted, he was over 500 4 or 5 weeks into the season. I mean, that's a great year for DK. He's hitting great. He's hitting clutch out of the 10 spot. I love what Dano did with his lineup also. He shuffled it a little bit at the end, even though it didn't show dividends in week 7. It shows that Dano is nimble enough to make the changes that he needs to make. I think one change he hasn't made all year is Butchie Cohen at third. Butchie has been hot and cold. Like Dano said on his interview, there are some weeks where Butchie is like, wow, this guy makes every single play possible. And then there's other weeks where Butchie just does not make any plays. Third base in the playoffs is humongous. It is humongous. I think, going back to the other series, Jake Braha has the edge over Mocass, because Mocass has been inconsistent with his throws this year. In this game, you have Charles Saka on Moshiach. I think he has a heavy advantage over Butchie Cohen at third base. I just feel like in the playoffs, third after short is the next most important position. And with Butchie at third, it could spell a problem for Brew Crew. If you go across the diamond, they have Nanu playing first or Mickey. I don't know what the status is on Nanu. He doesn't seem like someone that's going to be rehabbing his leg twice a day, doing 2-a-days, going to therapists. The guy didn't even get an MRI. It sounds like Nanu's just been sitting on his butt the last 3 weeks, hoping that it heals, and I'm sure it has healed a lot. I mean, he's had basically 6 weeks since the injury, so I think he should be fine, but I doubt he's 100% because knowing Nanu, he probably did not do 1 ounce of therapy or anything. He's letting it heal, and he's just saying, I'm going to be fine, and he's going to rely on his hitting. I think in the playoffs, that's a problem. I don't think that against Max Yadid, you could just show up, get into the batter's box, and just hit. I really don't think that's the formula against him. Let's talk about Moshiach for a second. I don't know another person in the league that would have figured out the proper lineup for Moshiach the way Mo Haber did. Everyone I know would have put Buka 1, and if not 1, 2. He switched his lineup, and he went with Juber 1, Elsack 2, and then Buka 3, then Joe Eshko 4. I'm a guy that's always loved looking at every single team's lineup and figuring out what I would do. And I sort of usually think, if like, I always put myself in the position, like, what would I do if I had this team? How would I do the lineup? And I sort of think the way I would do it is best because that's the way I would do if I had that team. When I saw this lineup, I said, wow, I would not have thought of that, and that is better than anything I would have thought of. I would have assumed that Buka's going to be 1. I would have done Juber 2, Elsack 3, Joe Eshko 4. Even though it's the same players, the way Mo Haber jumbled that and the way it looks on the field is dominant. Buka is hitting a lot better in the 3-hole than he was hitting in the 1-hole. Maybe in the 1-hole he's pressured to get on too much and then he pops up by mistake and it's a downer. In the 3-hole, that's not the case. In the 3-hole, Buka could fly out with a man on third and score a run. So I love what he did there. And then I love what he did with his team building exercises. Then that team on Friday got together at his house. They watched film together. They went to the field. They know where their problems are, which is their infield defense, which is basically that they don't have a classic shortstop. Ruby Saka is a phenomenal short center fielder. At shortstop, he's still learning the position. I think he could become a great shortstop in the future, but today, is he a great shortstop? I don't think so, not just yet. He has the talent. He can scoop any ground ball. We saw him throw a guy out from his knees the other day. That's phenomenal, but he still has to learn where to go on cutoffs and things like that. Mo Haber brought his team to a field before this week, and they worked on cutoffs. They worked on where you're going to be. And sure enough, you saw a play where Elsack threw the ball in to Ruby going this way, and he did a no-look spinorama and gunned it to second to nail AJ Cohen at second. It worked perfectly. They worked so hard, they were prepared. I think that they recognize where they're weak. They don't deny where they're weak, and they're just going to focus on all their strengths, which is their new and improved lineup, their vibe, and their pitcher on the mound. They have what some will call the best pitcher in the league, what anyone else would call the second best pitcher in the league. That's it. They have a top 2 pitcher no matter how you slice it, whether you rank him 1 or 2. They have a guy that could single-handedly win them the game. They could win a game 1-0. They could win a game 13-12. So they have the ability on both ends to do it. If their offense is being stymied, they could win the game on the mound. And if their mound is getting hit a little bit, their offense could come back and win the game for them. I haven't seen an explosion like that, like we saw offensively against the Hipsters, in many, many years. In fact, I haven't seen it in 10 years. The last time I saw anything that looked like that in the playoffs offensively was on the Montreal Expos 10 years ago. My team. We showed up against a team that was supposed to beat us, the 1 seed Pittsburgh Pirates, and we beat them 10-3, 2-0, 15-2 in the World Series. Those were the 3 games of the World Series. Again, 10-3, 2-0, 15-2. We were not a great offensive team throughout the year. We were more defensively minded. But just like Moshiach, we had an issue at shortstop. We switched our shortstop in week 7. We switched Carlos with Ali. Ali came into short. Carlos went out to center field. And after that, we just clicked. And all of a sudden, when we needed to explode offensively, we did. Leading off games with triples, drawing a walk, moving the lineup, then a couple of big boppers, getting the home runs, whatever it is. That's what watching Moshiach felt like to me for the first time in 10 years. Therefore, I see Moshiach going into the World Series without a loss, just like the Expos did. And I see them being a real threat if they continue the way they look. I see them being a real threat to break it, tying the Expos record of 7-0, because I don't see them losing before the World Series. I see them going 4-0, entering the World Series, and depending on who they're playing, we'll decide from there. So I am going to go with Moshiach to sweep, and I am going to go with Shake and Bake to sweep. I have 2 sweeps. I absolutely love the Brew Crew. I love them all year. I don't think it's their fault, but they haven't played a game that meant anything in a month. And that's just unfortunate. They were too good. The format failed them in that They had no danger throughout the regular season. They knew they were getting the bye. And I just think to no fault in their own, they're going to run into a buzzsaw over here. I can't imagine any team. I wouldn't pick any team over Moshiach today, no matter who they were playing tomorrow. I wouldn't pick any team over them right now. This is the YMSL. It could change pretty quickly. We know that. It could change pretty quickly, but I don't see it changing by Sunday. If weather is a problem and we get delayed and we go another week or whatever, I don't know that that hurts Moshiach. I think it sort of hurts Brew Crew even more. They haven't played in a long time, and I think it's gonna hurt them. So again, I'm going Shake and Bake to sweep, and I'm going Moshiach to sweep. I am looking forward to what I believe will be a Nabi versus Maxi Deed World Series. Oh my God, I cannot imagine that, but I will not be surprised if I'm dead wrong and both series go 3 instead of 2, and the Brew Crew wins or Biblical wins. I really think all 4 teams are capable of winning, but I have to go with my gut, and I'm going Moshiach to sweep, Shake and Bake to sweep. See you all tomorrow at the All-Star game. Say bye, Bobby. Bye. Say good luck. I love you. Let's go get water.